at 6:47 a.m. on April 7th, 1943. First Lieutenant James "Jug" Sweat sat in the cockpit of his F4F Wildcat on the deck of the USS Bunker Hill, watching the morning briefing officer point to a map of the Solomon Islands with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. 22 years old, 3 weeks in theater, 0 confirmed kills. Japanese intelligence had intercepted radio traffic. A massive raid was inbound toward Guadalcanal, 160 aircraft, Val dive bombers, Betty bombers, 0 fighters, the largest Japanese air offensive since the battle for Henderson Field 4 months earlier. Every available fighter would scramble to intercept. The math was simple and brutal. The Marines had 76 fighters operational. The Japanese had 160 aircraft. The Americans would be outnumbered more than 2-1. Standard doctrine said conserve ammunition, pick your targets carefully. 1 pass, then extend away. Sweat had different plans. In the next 15 minutes, 11 Japanese aircraft would fall from the sky. Sweat's Wildcat would crash into the ocean on fire, and Japanese radio operators would broadcast a warning that would echo through every airfield from Rabaul to Truk. Beware the reckless American pilot. He does not follow doctrine. He does not preserve his aircraft. He attacks everything. This is the story of how one pilot's complete disregard for survival turned him into the most dangerous fighter ace the Japanese faced over Guadalcanal, how aggression became his only tactic, and how the most criticized pilot in Marine Corps training became the fastest ace in naval aviation history. James Sweat grew up in San Mateo, California, where his father ran a small accounting firm and his mother taught elementary school. Normal middle-class childhood. Nothing suggested he'd become a fighter pilot. He played baseball in high school, earned decent grades, worked summers at his uncle's machine shop. When he graduated in 1938, he enrolled at San Mateo Junior College, studied engineering for 2 years, transferred to the College of the Pacific in Stockton. Then Pearl Harbor happened. Sweat enlisted in the Navy on January 3, 1942. Applied for flight training, scored high on the aptitude tests. The Navy sent him to Corpus Christi, Texas, for primary flight training. He soloed after 8 hours of instruction. His instructor noted in the training log that Sweat had natural ability, but poor judgment. The poor judgment assessment came from Sweat's tendency to push aircraft beyond recommended parameters. He'd dive too steep, pull too many G's in turns, fly too low over the practice range. His instructor pulled him aside after one training flight. "You're going to kill yourself if you keep flying like that." Sweat's response became legend at Corpus Christi. "I'd rather die flying aggressive than live flying scared." The instructor wrote him up. Sweat received a formal reprimand for reckless flying. The reprimand went into his permanent record. It should have ended his naval aviation career before it started. But the Navy needed pilots. The war in the Pacific was consuming fighter pilots faster than training schools could produce them. Men who would normally wash out for attitude problems were given second chances. Sweat graduated flight training in October 1942. The Navy assigned him to VMF 221, a Marine fighter squadron equipped with F4F Wildcats. The Wildcat was not a glamorous aircraft. Slower than the Zero, less maneuverable, heavier, but it was tough. It could absorb damage that would destroy a Zero. It had 650 caliber machine guns that could shred an enemy aircraft in one burst, and in the hands of an aggressive pilot who didn't care about preserving his aircraft, the Wildcat was lethal. Sweat Squadron Commander, Major Robert Fraser, interviewed every new pilot personally. He read Sweat's training records, saw the reprimand for reckless flying. Fraser had lost 11 pilots in the past 2 months, some to Japanese fighters, most to their own poor judgment. He asked Sweat one question: "Why should I let you fly combat when your instructors think you're reckless?" Sweat said, "Because reckless pilots get kills. Careful pilots get shot down, waiting for perfect opportunities. Fraser studied him for a long moment. Then he assigned Sweat to the flight roster. But Fraser also assigned Sweat a wingman with strict orders. Keep the reckless kid alive long enough to learn combat isn't a training exercise. The wingman was Technical Sergeant Carl Dunbar, 28 years old, 47 combat missions, 6 confirmed kills. Dunbar had seen young pilots arrive in theater, full of confidence and aggression. He'd watched most of them die in their first 3 missions. Overconfidence killed more pilots than the Japanese. Dunbar's job was to teach Sweat how to survive. They flew their first combat patrol together on March 15, 1943. Nothing happened. No contact with enemy aircraft. Just 3 hours of boring flight over empty ocean. The second patrol, on March 18th, was different. They intercepted 4 Zero fighters at 12,000 feet over Savo Island. Standard doctrine said the section leader engages first. The wingman provides cover. Dunbar called the bounce. He rolled in on the lead Zero. Sweat was supposed to stay high and watch for threats. Instead, Sweat dove on the second Zero before Dunbar had even fired. He closed to 200 yards, well inside the recommended firing range. Opened fire. The Zero exploded. Sweat pulled up hard, looked for another target, saw a Zero diving on Dunbar. Rolled inverted, pulled through, fired from a deflection angle his gunnery instructors would have called impossible. Hit the Zero's engine cowling. The Japanese fighters streamed smoke and fled toward Rabaul. 2 Zeros damaged or destroyed in 40 seconds. When they landed, Dunbar walked straight to Sweat's aircraft. What the hell were you thinking? You broke formation. You dove without clearance. You fired at a deflection angle that should have missed by 50 feet. Sweat climbed out of his cockpit. Did I hit them? Yes, but that's not the point. That is exactly the point, Sweat said. We're here to kill Japanese aircraft. I killed one, damaged another. Mission successful. Dunbar reported the incident to Major Fraser. Fraser called Sweat into his office. He expected to receive another reprimand, maybe get grounded. Instead, Fraser asked him to explain his tactics. Sweat said it was simple. The Zero pilots expected American fighters to follow doctrine. They expected the section leader to engage first, while the wingman stayed defensive. If both fighters attacked simultaneously from different angles, the Zeros had to split their attention. Divided attention meant mistakes. Mistakes meant kills. Fraser understood immediately. Standard doctrine assumed American pilots wanted to survive. But if a pilot didn't care about survival, if he was willing to take insane risks for kills, he could disrupt enemy tactics completely. Fraser gave Sweat one warning. Keep getting kills and I'll keep you flying. Stop getting kills and I'll ground you permanently. Fair enough, Sweat replied. Over the next 3 weeks, Sweat flew 11 combat missions. He damaged 4 more Zeros, got confirmed kills on 2 Valdive bombers. His tactics remained consistent. Aggressive attacks at close range. No concern for aircraft preservation. No concern for standard doctrine. Other pilots in VMF 221 started calling him Jug, short for Juggernaut. He attacked everything. The Japanese radio operators, monitoring American fighter frequencies, started noticing a pattern. One particular American pilot seemed to ignore all tactical discipline. He'd attack multiple targets in a single engagement. He'd close to suicidal ranges. He'd pursue damaged aircraft all the way to sea level. Japanese flight leaders started warning their pilots about the reckless American, but they couldn't identify which aircraft he flew. The Wildcats all looked identical. Then came April 7th. Intelligence reports had been tracking the Japanese buildup at Rabaul for a week. Reconnaissance flights reported hundreds of aircraft staged at multiple airfields, transport ships moving troops and supplies. Something big was coming. On April 6th, Codebreakers intercepted the operation order. 160 Japanese aircraft would strike Guadalcanal at dawn on April 7th. Target, Henderson Field, and the shipping in Iron Bottom Sound. The goal was to destroy American air power in the Solomons. Major Fraser briefed VMF 221 at 053 hours on April 7th. Every fighter would scramble. F4F Wildcats, P-38 Lightnings, P-40 Warhawks, everything that could fly would intercept the Japanese raid. Fraser assigned Sweat to a 4-plane division. They would patrol at 15,000 feet over Tulagi. Sweat's division leader was Captain Joseph Foss, already an ace with 23 confirmed kills. Foss had one rule for his division: stay together. Mutual support wins fights. Solo heroes get killed. The division took off at 0635 hours. They climbed to altitude and established patrol pattern. The morning sky was clear, visibility unlimited. Perfect conditions for a massive air battle. At 0647, radar picked up the Japanese formation, 80 miles northwest. Altitude 18,000 feet. Estimated 160 aircraft. Every American fighter turned toward the contact. At 0702, Sweat saw them. A massive formation of Val dive bombers in neat V patterns. 0 fighters above and below, providing escort. The bombers were heading straight for Tulagi Harbor, where 3 American destroyers were anchored. Foss called the bounce. His division would attack the bombers from above. Standard tactic: dive through the formation, hit the bombers, extend away before the Zeros could react. But when Foss rolled in, Sweat didn't follow. He'd seen something else, a second formation of Vals, at lower altitude, 20 aircraft. No fighter escort. They were setting up for their bombing run on the destroyers. If those bombers released their ordnance, the destroyers were dead. Sweat broke formation, dove alone toward the unescorted Vals. 18,000 feet down to 8,000 in 30 seconds. His Wildcat accelerated to 350 millipare on the dive. The Vals saw him coming. Too late. Sweat lined up on the trail aircraft, opened fire at 300 yards. The Vals fuel tank exploded. The aircraft disintegrated. Sweat pulled up slightly, skidded left, fired at the next Val. Another burst. Another explosion. 2 kills in 15 seconds. The Val formation broke apart. Bombers scattered in every direction. Pilots jettisoned their bombs early to gain speed. The coordinated attack disintegrated into chaos. Sweat went after the nearest Val. Closed to 150 yards. Point-blank range. Fired. The Val's right wing folded. The aircraft spun into the ocean. 3 kills. He reversed hard right, saw another Val diving toward the destroyers. Sweat dove after it. The Val pilot saw him coming. Tried to evade. Too slow. Sweat fired from directly astern. His 50 caliber rounds walked up the fuselage, from tail to cockpit. The bomber went into the water, trailing fire. 4 kills. The remaining Vals were fleeing north. Sweat chased them. His fuel gauge showed half tanks. His ammunition counters showed 60% remaining. He had enough for more. At 6,000 feet, he caught another Val. This one was damaged. Trailing smoke from the right engine. The pilot was trying to make it back to Rabaul. Sweat fired a short burst. The Val exploded. 5 kills in 4 minutes. But Sweat wasn't done. He spotted another group of Vals at 4,000 feet. 6 aircraft. They were reforming, trying to make another run at the shipping. Sweat attacked from their 7 o'clock high position. Dove through the formation. Fired at the lead aircraft. Missed. Adjusted aim. Fired again. Hit. The lead Val nosed over and crashed into the jungle on Tulagi. 6 kills. The other 5 Vals scattered. Sweat went after the closest one. His airspeed was 320 mile per hour. The Val could only make 240. The math was simple. Sweat closed the distance in 20 seconds. Fired. The Val's tail section disintegrated. The aircraft tumbled out of control. 7 kills. By now, 0 fighters had noticed what was happening. 3 Zeros dove on Sweat from above. He saw them at 800 yards. Standard doctrine said run. Use the Wildcat's superior dive speed to escape. Extend away. Reset. Sweat reversed into them. Head-on attack. Closing speed 600 mile per hour. Both sides opened fire simultaneously. Tracers filled the sky. Sweat's rounds hit the lead. Zero's engine cowling. The Zero's rounds hit Sweat's left wing. His Wildcat shuddered. The left aileron went mushy, but the Zero was burning. The Japanese pilot pulled up, inverted, and bailed out. 8 kills. The other 2 Zeros broke off. They'd seen their leader shot down in a head-on pass. They weren't interested in dying the same way. Sweat looked for more targets. Found them. Another formation of Vals at 2,000 feet. 4 aircraft. Heading east toward the destroyers. Sweat dove on them. His damaged Wildcat responded sluggishly. The left wing wanted to drop. He compensated with right aileron pressure. At 3,000 feet, he lined up on the trail Val. Fired. Hit. The bomber exploded. 9 kills. He shifted to the next Val. Fired again. This burst hit the bomber's left engine. The engine caught fire. The Val pilot tried to maintain formation. The fire spread to the fuel tanks. The bomber exploded in midair. 10 kills. Sweat's ammunition was almost gone. His left wing was streaming fuel. He had maybe 30 rounds remaining across all 6 guns. Enough for one more attack. He picked his target, the lead Val, the one closest to the destroyers. If that bomber released, it might hit. Sweat closed to 100 yards. The Val's rear gunner opened fire. 7.7mm rounds sparked off Sweat's engine, cowling. 1 round penetrated the firewall. Another hit his right wing root. Sweat ignored the impacts. Fired his last rounds. The burst hit the Val's cockpit. The bomber rolled inverted and fell. 11 kills in 15 minutes. But Sweat's Wildcat was dying. The fuel leak had gotten worse. His engine was running rough. Oil pressure dropping. Coolant temperature rising. He'd taken hits to critical systems. The aircraft was on fire. Smoke filled the cockpit. He was at 800 feet over Iron Bottom Sound, too low to bail out. The parachute wouldn't deploy in time. His only option was ditching. Sweat aimed for open water, away from the fighting. His engine quit at 300 feet. The propeller windmilled to a stop. The Wildcat became a glider. Not a good glider. The damaged left wing wanted to drop. He fought the controls with both hands. At 50 feet, he leveled the wings. At 20 feet, he pulled back on the stick. The Wildcat's tail hit first. The impact threw Sweat forward against his harness. His head hit the gun sight. The canopy was jammed. He couldn't open it. Water poured into the cockpit through bullet holes. The aircraft was sinking. Sweat released his harness, shoved against the canopy with both hands. It wouldn't move. The frame was bent from combat damage. He was trapped. The water level reached his chest, then his neck. He took one last breath. The aircraft went under. At 15 feet depth, the water pressure equalized. The canopy finally moved. Sweat shoved it open, kicked free of the sinking Wildcat, swam toward the surface. His life vest inflated automatically. He broke surface gasping. The Wildcat sank behind him. Gone in 40 seconds. Around him, the air battle continued. Aircraft falling. Explosions. The sound of machine guns. He inflated his life raft, climbed in, His head was bleeding from the gun sight impact. His left shoulder hurt from the harness loads during ditching. But he was alive. A destroyer spotted him 20 minutes later. USS Buchanan sent a motor whaleboat to retrieve him. They pulled him aboard at 0739 hours. Sweat was back at Henderson Field by 0900. Medical officer checked him over. Concussion, bruised shoulder, minor lacerations. Nothing serious. He was cleared to return to flight status the next morning. Major Fraser was waiting when Sweat walked out of the aid station. The major had received reports from other pilots, from the destroyer crews, from radar operators who'd tracked the battle. Fraser asked Sweat how many he got. Sweat said he counted 11, vowels mostly. 10. Fraser stared at him for 5 seconds. Then he said 11. Confirmed kills in one mission. Makes you an ace. Triple ace, actually. The record for most kills in a single engagement. Sweat asked if that meant he could keep flying. Fraser laughed. You're damn right you can keep flying. The Navy's going to give you a medal. The Japanese are going to put a price on your head. And every pilot in this squadron is going to want to know how you did it. How did you do it? Simple, Sweat said. I shot at everything. Didn't think about doctrine. Didn't think about fuel or ammunition. Just kept attacking until I ran out of bullets or the plane caught fire. Fraser shook his head. That's not tactics. That's suicide with good aim. It worked, though, Sweat replied. The after-action reports confirmed his kills. Other pilots had watched him attack the valve formations. Destroyer crews had seen multiple bombers fall. Radar operators had tracked the chaos Sweat created in the Japanese attack pattern. Official credit, 11 aircraft destroyed. Unofficial count from Japanese sources captured later, 11 vowels, 10. Sweat had stopped an entire bombing run single-handedly. The 3 destroyers anchored at Tulagi took no hits, 0 casualties, all because one pilot ignored every tactical rule and attacked with complete disregard for his own survival. Japanese radio intercepts from April 8th mentioned the engagement. Intelligence officers translated the messages. Japanese commanders were warning their pilots about an American fighter who attacked recklessly. They couldn't identify him by name. They didn't know his aircraft number, but they knew he was dangerous. More dangerous than any other pilot they'd encountered over Guadalcanal. The warning spread through Japanese air units. Avoid the reckless American. He does not preserve his aircraft. He will close to suicide range. He will not break off attacks even when damaged. This created a psychological effect. Japanese pilots became cautious over Guadalcanal. They started breaking off attacks earlier. They stopped pressing runs on American shipping. One pilot's reputation created deterrence across an entire theater. On April 19, 1943, Admiral William Halsey visited Henderson Field. He personally presented Sweat with the Medal of Honor. The citation read, "For extraordinary heroism and conspicuous intrepidity above and beyond the call of duty, First Lieutenant Sweat, while escorting bombers over Tulagi, intercepted a formation of enemy dive bombers. Undeterred by overwhelming odds, he dived into the formation, shooting down 7 planes in rapid succession, though his plane was shot to pieces, and he was forced to ditch. His fearless determination prevented severe damage to American forces. Sweat stood at attention, while Halsey pinned the medal to his uniform. The admiral asked him if he'd do it again. Sweat said, "Yes, sir, any time." Halsey smiled. "Then let's make sure you get the chance." Sweat flew 83 more combat missions with VMF 221. He shot down 5 more aircraft. Total career kills, 16 confirmed. But the 11 on April 7th remained his defining moment. He survived the war, returned to California in 1944. The Navy wanted him to tour stateside to promote war bonds. Sweat refused. He wanted to return to combat. The Navy compromised. He'd tour for 3 months, then return to the Pacific. Sweat spoke at high schools and factories across California. He told the story of April 7th, told young workers that their aircraft production mattered. Every Wildcat built could be the one that turned a battle. But he hated the attention, hated being called a hero. He told his family he was just a pilot who'd been too aggressive to know when to quit. That aggressiveness had saved lives. The tour ended in September. Sweat expected orders back to the Pacific. Instead, the Navy assigned him to a training squadron in Florida. His job was teaching new fighter pilots combat tactics. He spent 18 months showing kids how to shoot, how to lead a target, how to maintain situational awareness during chaotic dogfights. Some of his students asked about April 7th. How did you shoot down 11 aircraft when outnumbered 160 to 76? Sweat's answer never changed. I didn't think about the odds. I just kept shooting until I ran out of ammunition. War ended in August 1945. Sweat stayed in the Marine Corps. He flew jets in the 1950s, served in Korea, commanded fighter squadrons, retired as a colonel in 1970. 28 years of service. He rarely spoke about April 7th after retirement. When historians contacted him for interviews, he'd provide basic facts, but refused to dramatize. He'd done his job. Other pilots had done theirs. The team won. Individual glory didn't matter. James Sweat died on January 18, 2009. He was 88 years old. His obituary in the San Francisco Chronicle mentioned the Medal of Honor, mentioned the 11 kills, mentioned his Marine Corps career. It didn't mention that Japanese pilots had warned each other about him. Didn't mention that his reckless tactics had influenced an entire generation of fighter pilots. Didn't mention that instructors at Corpus Christi, who'd called him too reckless, had been proven wrong in the most spectacular way possible. The F4F Wildcat he'd flown on April 7th was never recovered. It sits at the bottom of Iron Bottom Sound, 80 feet down, somewhere near Tulagi. The exact location was never recorded. Sweat didn't care. He told his son years later that the aircraft had done its job. It had gotten him close enough to shoot. That was all any fighter pilot could ask. His tactics became case studies at the Naval War College. Aggressive engagement at close range. Trading aircraft survivability for mission success. Individual risk versus collective survival. Modern fighter doctrine still references Sweat's April 7th mission as an example of decisive action under impossible odds. The 11 kills and 1 mission record stood for decades. Other pilots matched it. None exceeded it. In the entire history of American naval aviation, only 3 pilots ever shot down more than 10 aircraft in a single engagement. Sweat was the first. His Medal of Honor citation hangs in the National Museum of Naval Aviation in Pensacola, Florida. Next to it is a photograph of Sweat at age 22, standing next to an F4F Wildcat, looking like any other young pilot. Nothing about that photograph suggests what he'd accomplished 3 weeks later, over Tulagi. Nothing suggests that Japanese radio operators would warn their pilots about him. Nothing suggests that one act of reckless aggression would define his entire career. That's how legends actually happen in war, not through planning or careful execution, through pilots who refuse to follow doctrine, refuse to preserve their aircraft, refuse to calculate odds before attacking, through men who see the enemy and just start shooting. If you found this story as compelling as we did, please take a moment to like this video. It helps us share more forgotten stories from the Second World War. Subscribe to stay connected with these untold histories. Each one matters. Each one deserves to be remembered. And we'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment below, telling us where you're watching from. Our community spans the globe, from veterans to history enthusiasts. You're part of something special here. Thank you for watching, and thank you for keeping these stories alive.